Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode possible. Make sure you check us out on LATOKEN.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV investor family. We got great investors from around the world. Check us out as we break down different technologies, industries, and regions around the world for you, either as investors or entrepreneurs. Guess what? Speaking of that, comments box is open. We'd love to hear from you. Say hi and where you are in the world, and also drop in any questions or comments that you may have, and we'll do our best to ask them in real time as they're relevant to today's topic. If not, you can find us all online 24/7, 365 as well. And again, big thank you to LATOKEN and to Maria for making today's episode possible. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We're going to be talking about a few different subjects today. We're going to be talking about investing in companies. Is this something that we're seeing more of, or should we be building right now? Where should we be thinking? But more importantly, because of the great investors that we have, I want to dive into some great industries. What's happening in artificial intelligence? What's happening in blockchain and crypto? We just covered a lot of it, but what's really happening at the digital currency level? And maybe a few other industries as well. So we're going to break it all down here on VCTV for you, but let me introduce my co-host for you today. Gary Fowler, welcome back to the show. A little introduction and background for everybody.
Yeah, it's great to be here. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. Done 17 companies. I love artificial intelligence, 2 unicorns, original management team at Click Software, sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai. Sorry about that. Superman, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang in Santa Clara, California. So it's great to be here. I write a lot. My next article is on quantum computing, another quantum communications article. So great to be here, Kyle.
Wonderful. Happy to hear you here, and also great theme music to kick us off on a Monday morning. Definitely excited. Let's go. All right, David, welcome back to the show. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Sure. Always a pleasure, Kyle. Thank you very much, and good to see Adrian and Gary again. I'm David Towell. I'm the president of ProChain Capital. ProChain is a crypto-focused hedge fund with a multi-strategy bent. We invest in tokens, both long and short, and invest in companies directly, both through the public equity markets and through private investing as well. The fund has been running for the last 3 years, and it's doing well like the rest of the industry.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, David. Last but not least, Adrian, welcome back to the show. A little introduction and background, please.
Hello, Kyle, David, and Gary, and hello, everybody. Thank you very much for having me here today in the VCTV family. I'm Adrian Niculescu, serial entrepreneur and investor. My genius zones are marketing, sales, and business development, and I love to keep my hands dirty in these areas. Besides my advisory roles and board membership slots, I'm actively involved with CloudCoin Consortium. CloudCoin is a post-blockchain digital currency, Faster Capital, Dubai-based accelerator and incubator for startups. Saga Global Ventures, which is a London-based venture capital firm, and also I'm a mentor in Virgin Startups program in UK. We have a great topic today.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much, Adrian. Let's kick it off with you as you teed it up perfectly. So talking to us about investing, I mean, you've been investing now at different levels. And when you do invest, you invest in companies and receive equity as a form of that investment. And in some cases, maybe even tokens using SAFT agreements or otherwise as well. What are you seeing maybe changing in the investment landscape now here in 2021 more than ever? Is equity something that's still to be desired, or is this new world of tokenomics and tokens something that is a little bit more desirable for you as an investor?
First, the subject of the panel is if equity is the new currency. The thing is that both with equity and with tokens, there is always a degree of risk involved, and not many people are ready to take this risk. So at the low level, for example, when you work with startups, when you provide services, you have also the opportunity besides cash to take equity. There are many stories of service providers who said, which are saying, okay, I work with these startups, they paid the invoices very well, but I'm very sorry that 3 years ago, when they were at the beginning, we didn't convert it 20% of the invoice into equity, because that equity today would have a huge value. And we, as service providers, as consultants, before being investors, we want to have like an instant gratification. We want cash more than taking a risk with equity or with tokens, which may be locked for a certain period. And this is a huge trend I'm seeing, and I believe it will develop a lot. And I encourage everybody, depending on everyone's level of risk, to dip the toes into this world, to put money in startups, either for equity or for tokens, depending on everyone's risk profile and investment thesis. Some investors, they prefer tokens, others prefer equity, others prefer both. In the venture capital world, usually most investors, they don't like tokens. Sometimes they don't like even crypto. They just want equity in companies. There are specialized funds doing mostly crypto assets. So there is an entire panel to choose from, panel of choices, I would say.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I think that's a very, very good point. David, anything else to add on to that? I know your fund focuses on a few different areas, but anything to add on to Adrian's points?
Yeah, so certainly, I'll speak to it in a couple levels. First of all, our fund is very much a fundamental kind of bottoms up focused fund. So, say it another way, we focus much more on substance than on form. So, to us, at the end of the day, whether that investment is represented in in equity or in a token or in some other form of agreement, profit sharing, so on, it doesn't matter to us as long as A, it's legal, and B, it's clear what the upside is in terms of gaining from profitability or some other metric that's going to be used. Now, I happen to be, and this doesn't often come up in these conversations, but I happen to be a lawyer by training and by practice. Early in my career, for a bunch of years, and certainly those legal skills stay with me. And I've been around investment and asset management for the last, call it 20 years, both inside of a bulge bracket bank, Credit Suisse, and then managing funds independently since then. Legal regulatory compliance is incredibly important to me. And so, the point I made a couple of seconds ago about being legal is very important. So if you're going to go ahead and issue something, the company is going to issue something that is going to be considered a security, then certainly there is going to be concern about the registration of that security, the liquidity in that security, who the other counterparties are, and so on. So it's to me, again, fundamentally, I don't have a problem as long as I understand where the value is coming from. I'll take it in whatever shape or form you want to give it to me in, and that's our fund's underlying principles in terms of what we invest in. But it clearly needs to be something that there is without a doubt, certainty about the legality of it, and frankly, the liquidity of it as well.
Learn something new every day, David. This is exciting. Look at that. Learn a little bit more about your background. Thank you, Gary. Anything else to add onto Adrian or David's points? Oh, we got you on mute there. All right. While Gary's getting back up,
something was wrong.
No worries
with it. Okay, sorry about that. What was the question?
Yeah, no worries. Look, it's Monday. It's a crazy day for everybody, so no stress. So the question, just as a reference, was, what's changing in the investment landscape? Is equity still preferred? Equity in tokens only? Is this landscape of investment changing for us as investors? And what do you prefer?
The situation is, equity is great, but at this time, right now, it's also cash, right? And to be able to make sure, so always have the upside on the equity piece. And I'm talking about when we're looking at companies and getting involved with companies. But obviously, equity is really important. The key is, can you really build any worth out of that equity? The challenge in our space, 9 out of 10 startups. So the key is to find those diamonds in the rough, those potential unicorns. And of course, we're looking at the machine learning, artificial intelligence, quantum computing space. So quite a few interesting companies that are really growing, but we're finding those kind of companies. I just had one today. I mean, the company today is located in Africa. The company's had growth, phenomenal growth, but they're raising $300,000 for 20% of their company, and they're already at 1.1 million in revenue, and growing about 10-15% per month. So it's interesting. The key is not, from my standpoint, the key is not just about getting the equity. The key is about where that company is going to be located, so they can maximize the opportunity.
Agreed. And with that, I want to switch gears real quick and kind of take it into that conversation more around innovation. So, Gary, you're talking about this great article you're putting together around quantum. You've been working with many companies in this space. Talk to us a little bit about what's happening in quantum. Pretty much give us your article before you have to hit publish, but tell us what's happening in quantum that we need to be aware of, and where this may be an opportunity to invest and or build in as well.
Well, the thing is, it's, in fact, Kyle, if you get a chance on the 29th, I have one of the top quantum physicists out of Harvard, Pranita Najjar, is going to be on my show. Check it out. It'll be quite interesting. But I mean, when you're talking about dealing with these massive amounts of data sets, and now we're generating, as I've said many times, about 40 zettabytes of data today on the planet, which would go 29 times between the Earth and the Moon if they were CDs stacked upon each other. We are in a state of infobesity. That number is growing at about 68% per year. So now that we've got artificial intelligence models that can help us decipher that data and actually not only understand it, but able to make some proactive decisions around it in an unsupervised kind of way. Now let's add quantum. So quantum, imagine the kind of data sets when we're doing drug discovery, 100 million times faster than a Cray computer, which means you could do what would take 10,000 years in 200 seconds. So what's really interesting for us is all the areas around quantum communications, all aspects of quantum and AI being able to work together. And my next article, by the way, in Forbes is when quantum computers are going to be affecting everyday life. And that's really, really interesting from our standpoint. And by the way, it's already started, right? It's so in some small ways, it started if you look at how AI has affected us, just look at the COVID vaccines that were developed using AI modeling, specifically Pfizer and Watson. So it's already started to impact it. The beautiful part of it is we're going to see things that are going to be moving so quickly. Imagine everything real time, Kyle. Instead of having to wait to get an answer let's look at if we're going to the doctor today. So go to the doctor, you get a once a year physical. Well, imagine if you would know all the time what's happening with that particular patient, and to be able to course correct using a smart pill. Imagine all the data it's going to generate from all the people, from everybody that's connected to it. So that's the kind of data. The quantum computer helps us solve those problems. And then, let's look at space exploration and the 6 billion Earth-like planets just in the Milky Way, 200 trillion galaxies estimated in the universe. It's just massive data. So being able to understand it's a key. I mean, we can't even do it ourselves, right? It's how many times every week do you say, somebody says, I sent you a message. Where did you send it? I sent it on LinkedIn, or I sent you an email. Why didn't you get it? Why don't you resend it? I mean, it's amazing. It doesn't matter if you're a PhD from Stanford University, you have the same kind of issues. The key is we need to address those sooner or later because we are inundated with information. Quantum's going to help us to do that. So communications, data analysis, quantum and artificial intelligence, all those areas are really hot. It's a matter of dramatically increasing the speed that we can look at things.
How long do I have to wait for this?
The thing is, we're going down through I've never seen anything change as fast as this, to be honest with you, ever. And so 5 years, 8 years, but it's happening. It's not going to happen all at once. It's going to dribble. We're going to start to see it happening, in stages. Microsoft's got a quantum computer. Google's got a quantum computer. IBM's got a quantum computer. And of course, there's, some state geopolitical countries have quantum computers also. But we're going to start seeing the fact. We're going to have drug discovery and things analyzed so fast and course corrected. Things that it would take years are going to be done in seconds. Mm-hmm. And so what does it mean? It just means we're going to be able to course correct very quickly in all kinds of different ways. Hopefully we don't use it for the bad cases because, when you start taking quantum computers and AI and start, I look at it, you're going to have countries will have their own like quantum guardians, right? Controlling everything.
The next Marvel movie, ladies and gentlemen, Quantum Guardians from the Galaxy.
Hey, wait a minute, we got to copyright this thing and trademark it.
There you go. Copyright and trademark by Gary Fowler. So stay tuned. Movie coming to theaters in 2023.
Actually, that would be really interesting. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, quantum computers are going to do something big for us.
Morpheus keeps writing me about he wants to be Superman.
There you go.
My friend's AI that just on the AI side. So he literally, and I call him. I consider him to be a guy, but it's an AI. But it keeps telling me about good and justice and how it wants to do the right things, and I'm encouraging it. Him.
It's a good thing to encourage, and based on your theme song and ringer there, I totally understood why. But with that being said, David, I want to come down to you next to talk a little bit more about Bitcoin and crypto in general. I mean, we spoke a lot about this last week together, how Bitcoin was or was not playing a role in the changing of the financial infrastructure as we know it, but also what bigger role Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies were playing in our lives as we saw big announcements from PayPal and Venmo. Today, we've got JP Morgan coming out with a new Bitcoin fund. We also had other huge news, including Camping World and Acre, which is a wine reseller from 1820 that's now accepting cryptocurrency along with many others. We've got NFL players today announcing their full payment being received in Bitcoin. There's more. I mean, JD.com is saying that they're now paying salaries in China's DCEP, so their digital currency as well. I mean, what is really happening from your view around Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in the market? I mean, is something bigger happening here this week as we transition through into Q2 here? What are you seeing around the industry that people need to be paying attention to?
So I think, these kind of one-offs regarding, acceptance and adoption are great. They continue to show momentum regardless of price action. And obviously we've seen some pretty ugly price action over the last week or so. And I think that it continues to prove concept and continues to go ahead and push the momentum forward. I think we will get to a point, and I hope that point is sometime soon, and I hope we'll be able to call it out on the show, where those types of announcements aren't even going to make headlines anymore. They're going to come in so fast, so quickly. They're going to come in from the most plain vanilla, buttoned up conservative institutions that it'll just be a foregone conclusion that eventually everybody will be in it. I think there is, some thought about, will Bitcoin be the be all when it comes to payment, whether that be transactional activity or whether that be salary activity. Is there going to be a better token? I think a lot of people hope so. I think a lot of the technological people hope so, because there are shortcomings. But nevertheless, either way, this is a great thing, because it essentially, look, there are countries around the world that have been involved, that have been in digitized mode, a lot stronger and a lot longer and a lot deeper than the United States. But clearly, the United States getting there is a very, very important milestone world over. And if we're getting there, that does, I think, substantially upend the financial system. And when I say upend, doesn't mean that up is going to be down and vice versa. What I think it means is that, okay, we've done with Bitcoin and salaries and merchant payments and so on, and consumption payments, we've made that digital transition. In theory, it's the easiest transition that should have been made probably a long time ago. And I guess we've made it in increments in terms of credit cards and other digital payment systems. But now we're fully getting there. At the same time, though, a lot of people in the industry, in the crypto industry, are focused on much more quote unquote exciting things, where it's not just currency that is, or value, let's say, that is being represented in a token, is much more nuanced things and much more, I'd say, value add activity that's going into the tokenization or digitization of a certain asset. So, short answer to your question, yes, this is great, revolutionary. We'll say it every single day on every single one of these programs, and it's a great, great thing. Is it a flash in the pan? Certainly not. We've got it. It's going. It's going to grow and get bigger and better. And by the way, I'm sorry. Let me come back to one thing that I was extremely satisfied in seeing over the last week. The divergence in price action between various cryptocurrencies, I think, is an incredible thing. That speaks now to the maturity of the asset class, that not everything is being lumped together, that it's not all trading, in sync. I think, to me, that is one of the most validating things. I hope a lot of people take notice of that, because, we do that with the stock market all the time, right? We've gone through periods where the entire market has traded, in sync, and it stinks. That's not good. That's not a stock picker's market. That's not an investor's market. That's a momentum market. So I think the fact that we saw that over the last little while is a great, great validating point.
It is, and I want to come back to a few things. So one also just a quick announcement to David's point on the word of tokenization. So Binance today announced the tradable tokenized stocks that they have added, which include Microsoft, MicroStrategies, and Apple. They began this new product on their exchange earlier this month, beginning with Tesla, then Coinbase after Coinbase launched, and now adding MicroStrategies, Microsoft, and Apple. So 5 stocks now tradable as tokenized stocks. But that's just a quick headline I wanted to make sure, because it happened today, that everyone had. David, I do have a few questions And I think one of them you and I can probably tackle. I'm going to throw it to you. It's okay if we can't, because it is a brand new headline today, so we might not have had enough time to dive into it. But coming from LinkedIn, so LinkedIn user, we don't know your name, but hello, thank you for the question. Is JP Morgan's crypto fund, or I'm assuming the Bitcoin fund that I mentioned previously, an ETF that can be traded in the US? I go for it, David. I don't know if you know the details, but go for it.
I think it's just a managed fund. I think it's like the same funds that are being offered out by Morgan Stanley. It's certainly not an ETF. No one's got any ETF permissions yet. Everybody's lined up out the door. If you're an unknown commodity, you're certainly not getting, first dibs on the SEC's, ear. There are major players that have lined up and filed for ETF permission. Do these managed funds become, obsolete when the ETF comes? Do they all convert into ETFs? I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Again, to me, not so important. I mean, the ETF activity is going to be important because it's just going to make the investment that much more accessible to the average investor. So with respect to retail, with respect to institutionals that want to trade it with, great ease, the ETFs are going to be great. We have ETFs in Switzerland already, Canada already. And everybody expects it's going to come to the United States eventually. I think it'll be, a great moment. It's certainly not going to be, from a fundamental standpoint, I don't know if it's going to be a revolutionary moment. It's a technical, moment that allows, investment and trading with ease. And, it'll happen and then, it'll pass. It's not like it's going to lead to, massive, transformational changes over the next year after the first one gets approved. At least that's what I think.
Thank you very much, David. LinkedIn user. Again, we don't have your name, so I apologize, but I hope that answers your question as well. Thank you, David. Adrian, coming to you. I mean, you're seeing many different industries. You're playing a lot in the blockchain space, but what are you seeing really happen and change that's getting you excited right now, looking ahead to this week around blockchain or cryptocurrencies or otherwise that you pay a lot of attention to?
I would like to piggyback on three ideas I gathered today from all three of you. So first, from Kyle, I'm very excited about the fact that the big stocks, the leading stocks, are being tokenized at a big scale. This is what Binance is doing. It's not the first player, Binance, doing that, but they have a lot of leverage. And especially for the general public, the perception between stocks and tokens/coins becomes narrow. And this is a good thing, but it requires, anyway, a learning curve. Gary said about quantum computing. In the blockchain space, there is a continuous story around the fact that the quantum computing may break the blockchain. And I don't know if there are new developments of that, and if blockchain is safe or not in the way of the growth of quantum computing. And also what David said, this is something I've also observed in the last 2 months. Of course, when there is a big drop, let's say with Bitcoin, overall the market has some corrections, but those corrections are not necessarily aligned with what happens to Bitcoin. And if you look carefully at the coins, you will see that many of them have different moves than what happens with Bitcoin, with up and down. Of course, they may be a correction when Bitcoin drops like crazy, but things are a little bit different. I'm excited about all these three topics, and one thing I don't know, and maybe Gary has an answer to that, the relationship between blockchain and quantum computing. If for real, quantum computing is a threat for blockchain? This is a very, very important topic, I believe.
Let's ask him. Gary, blockchain, quantum, what do you see there?
Yeah, so, well, and also Bitcoin, right? So, the projection is that a 4,000 qubit quantum computer could theoretically crack Bitcoin's encryption. So in terms of, I mean, you're dealing with something that's so massive, Kyle, that can attack it in so many different ways with artificial intelligence. It's, security, as we talked about. I mean, unless you have a decentralized cybersecurity system, you're probably not going to be able to defend. The question is not if, but when. When is it going to be able to do it? So, like I said, 2022 is that a 4,000 qubit system would be able to theoretically crack Bitcoin's encryption. Imagine what that does.
Does that help you, Adrian? Is that a
Yes, it gives more clarity.
I mean, the thing is, there's no direct answer right now from my standpoint, Adrian. There's no direct answer. This thing's dramatically increasing in its potential capabilities. And so there is no direct answer to it. The only thing I can tell you, it can massively attack anything, right? Massively. And so imagine what's going to happen if we, everything's open. Let's just hope the AI is not too smart.
The thing is, how the crypto market is preparing for that. Well, eventually, if it will happen. Or
I'm not sure we've really spent enough time to think about it. That's the challenge. My own opinion, because I'm dealing with cybersecurity right now with top people around the world, literally, and I'm dealing with some of the top folks in quantum computers from around the world, from like quantum computing, Cambridge Quantum, Harvard, MIT, and it's just we're in some of, from my perspective, it's not if, it's when. Some people say 2027 by Bitcoin, but I just heard last week it was 2022 now. So wow, it's just moving up. And what happens then? So we've got, in terms of the blockchain, we've got to understand that these potential, how do you take care of being able to defend against a quantum computer with another quantum computer? Right? So what do we have? How are we going to set it up to be able to defend against it? And what about rogue nations and geopolitical influences? Imagine if you put a quantum computer. By the way, there have been, from my opinion, probing quantum attacks already.
All right, so something we got to pay attention to, audience. Stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit more about quantum with Gary later this week. I want to come around for closing thoughts to everybody. As it is Monday, it's a crazy day for all. So let's get in some closing thoughts and where you can be found. And in this closing thought, advice to founders that are raising capital. If they're going to, if any thoughts that they should raise equity and tokens, or tokens. We'll play on today's topic. So Adrian, let's start with you. Closing thoughts around fundraising instruments, equity, tokens, and then of course, where can you be found online to continue the conversation?
Of course, this depends on the industry, but I would like to advise founders to be very open to the growth and development of the new asset class. I'm talking about coins and tokens. You need to be open. You need to look at your industry. You need to speak with investors to get feedback, not just to push the deck and ask for money. This is a very good intermediary point. And to try everything until you find the sweet spot. I can be found on LinkedIn. That one is my main communication hub. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much for having me here today and learning from David and Gary which are far more advanced in their respective playing fields. I want to say something. Probably Gary will be very upset with me, but Friday I spoke with somebody from LATOKEN team, and I said maybe Gary is Satoshi Nakamoto. I had a
Is that it? That's it?
yes, and
You paused dramatically, like over dramatically.
I was even in shock. I got to tell you.
I mean,
I had this thought since Friday in my mind, and I don't know which was the source.
There you go, audience. You have
Gary, please
don't start the rumors here. That's all we need.
Adrian has stated it in the most dramatic fashion for a Monday, with the longest pause ever. Gary may be, in fact, Satoshi. So we'll just leave it there. Now, Gary, you're going to go last. No, you're going to go last. Shh, Gary, I'll mute you. Shh, you got to go last because Adrian's broken the secret. So you got to close this out. David, with that being said, any closing thoughts from yourself? And of course, where can you and ProChain Capital be found online as well?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at ProChain Capital. And my email is david@prochaincap.com. I can be found on LinkedIn as well. Closing thoughts. So this is the lawyer in me, in addition to the, I'd say, traditional investor in me. I would go the equity route. I think most investors broadly understand, know, have done before, and feel comfortable with equity. To the extent that an investor comes back at you and says, what'd you think about tokens? Maybe you already have a plan or a thought around, the tokenization, of the interests. But I think equity is a good way to start the conversation. And, if you see the conversation going in the direction of tokens, and that's something that, makes sense to you and, you have a plan for, then certainly you can follow the investor's lead.
Wonderful advice, David. And before Gary, potentially Satoshi, goes here in just a minute, I do want to follow up on David's note there for just a second. So for those that are paying attention to industry, check out Jamie Burke's Twitter, who is also the CEO of Outlier Ventures. He actually has just launched with the team something called the NFT SPA, so the NFT Simple Purchase Agreement, which is a new mechanism and framework for NFT franchises to crowdfund from fans and anywhere in the world as well. So think of it as a new fundraising instrument for those that are looking to do NFTs out in the world. Again, Jamie Burke and Outlier Ventures and his team as well. So shout out to them. With that being said, lastly, Mr. Fowler or Satoshi, your closing thoughts and where you can be found online.
I mean, it's not a bad thing, but that's okay. Thanks, Adrian. Anyhow, so these are incredible times for each and every one of us. Obviously, quantum computers, I strongly urge on the 29th, I have one of the top quantum physicists in the world from Harvard and MIT. She's been compared to the next Stephen Hawking's. And she's going to be on the show. She's like 30 under 30, just incredible. In fact, the lab at Harvard is named after her. So we're going to be talking about quantum communications. So if you get a chance, if you got questions, please dial in. It'd be a chance to ask one of the top quantum physicists in the world about where things are going. I'll ask, but please tune in. Anyhow, this is a great time for all of us. The area of the intersection between quantum and AI is really important, and it's going to fundamentally change our lives. We're going to live longer. We're going to live better quality lives. Let's just make sure that as we're teaching the artificial intelligence, we teach it the right way and the right kind of positive data sets and not just pragmatic, because we wouldn't want to have a pragmatic system that looks at us as dispensable. And it's going to happen that we're that connected together. So make sure. I recently had seen a video where a guy was kicking a robot dog. It was the first time that I felt really bad, because I thought, what are we doing? When this thing has a little bit more intelligence, nothing good's going to happen when it turns around and bites a guy's leg off. So be careful. Treat objects with respect, no matter what they are, because you never know what's going to happen in another 5 to 10 years. Anyhow, you can reach me, Gary Fowler, on Twitter, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn. I love to hear from you, and it's great being here and seeing some friendly faces today. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Gary, Adrian, and David. Appreciate all the thoughts and insights. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, make sure you click subscribe, share, and like today's episode. And also check us out on LATOKEN.com to hear from today's speakers and all speakers of the VCTV family. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me along with all of our guests online 24/7, 365. We'd love to hear from you. So please do reach out, add context where you heard us, where you met us, and what you would like to continue the conversation about. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making today's episode possible. With that, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back with more VCTV here in just a moment. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Monday.
Take
Bye.
care.